Welcome back to the Empowered Learning Podcast, where we explore the stories and strategies that help us grow, lead, and create with purpose. Today's guest is award-winning thriller author Caleb Stevens, a two-time Colorado Book Awards finalist and the writer behind gripping psychological suspense novels like You'll Never Know, If You Lie, and The Girls in the Cabin. In this conversation, Caleb opens up about spending 5 years writing his first novel, then making the hard call to admit it wasn't ready. Instead of quitting, he doubled down on the craft, the discipline, and the long road to mastery. If you've ever questioned your progress or felt stuck in the middle, this one's for you. Let's dive in. Good morning, Caleb. How are you, man?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for spending some time with us today.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You bet. You bet. So lots of questions that I want to dive into, but just a little foretaste as to what we're going to get into. You are a award-winning author, so I would love to get your best piece of writing advice that you wish that you had earlier on in your journey.
Yeah, this would have saved me a lot of time because I got really serious with writing probably in my later 20s, and I jumped right into a novel, and it took me about 5 years to write in between having my twin girls.
Right.
And by the time I read it, when it was all done, I suspected that it was kind of hot garbage. And
Oh, no.
I sent it to my wife's uncle is actually, believe it or not, he was the screenwriter for the original Jumanji. So he has
Wow. That's
quite a
awesome.
few different screenplays he's written that you'd recognize, and he's worked with some pretty famous people. But I sent it to him, and he kind of confirmed that and gave me a bunch of reasons as to why it didn't probably work.
Okay.
So, like as a writer, you're always going to have to walk across the coals
Mm-hmm.
before you can even start to begin your journey, really. But you can actually
Right.
accelerate that process by
Okay.
getting into a writing group and
Mm.
talking with other writers and not trying to do what I did, which is doing it all in isolation and all alone, which accelerates your learning. It'll accelerate your learning. It'll help you understand what you're doing incorrectly as you go. And it's just a good way to meet people who are on the same journey as you, build solidarity, that type of thing.
Right.
And, even when I was doing it, I think the online space has grown a lot too. So it's really a lot easier to find writing groups than there used to be. And actually starting with short stories is a way to go too, because
Oh, okay.
improve the craft and have a lot of goes at it, get a lot of reps in. So
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I was looking at your offerings on Amazon, and it does kind of run the gamut, right? You've got short stories, you've got novels and this kind of stuff. And as a, I don't think it really matters what the career is. Everyone has to put in their 10,000 hours in one way or the
correct.
other, right? So, I mean, it's one of those things that do you want to spend 3 or 4 thousand hours of that on this massive thing that may or may not, you don't know what you don't know. So yeah, I completely concur with that. That makes a lot of sense.
And other hours are more valuable than,
Mm-hmm.
so, you can spend 4,000 hours to get 1,000 hours of learning,
There you go.
so,
Yeah, just
which
be
you don't
smart
want
with
to do.
that. I
Yes.
love it. I love it. Very good. I appreciate that. Awesome. Well, Caleb, tell us a little bit about your upbringing. I will spoil a little bit of this story here that Caleb and I grew up in the same small town in Southwest Colorado. His dad was actually my dad's boss, and I just had nothing but respect for your dad. He was just always a great man, great heart, just always somebody that I respected and my dad respected. So, anyways, you're a year younger than me, so we went to school together. Wouldn't say we crossed paths all that much. I was the band geek and that kind of stuff and whatever, but I definitely knew who you were and thought you were a cool guy. And but then 20, good grief, 20 almost 30 years later now, we're reconnecting here. So tell us what you've been up to since those the beginnings in Southwest Colorado.
It's kind of crazy how time flies looking back now.
It is, isn't it?
Everyone you say those things.
Yeah, sorry to be the reminder.
Well, no, it's all good. And actually, what's kind of funny is, I had a lot of respect for your father. That's not funny, but I had a lot of. It's interesting how it all works out because I
Right.
interned at
Oh yeah.
Empire Electric, where both our
Mhm.
fathers worked, and
Right.
I worked with your father some a little bit in the accounting industry, and
Yeah.
since he was an accountant, he
Right.
was my first exposure to accounting, and actually that's what I wound up ultimately becoming was an accountant. So I
That's
remember.
awesome.
I remember some of those early lessons that your dad had taught me, which is, it's great. And Paul loved Paul. So
That's awesome. I appreciate that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
really, really liked your dad. He was a great guy. But yeah, no, without getting too boring with everything, I got a degree in marketing and went out into the world and wasn't able to really get anywhere with that. I actually started in financial planning, and
Hmm.
nobody wanted to listen to a kid without any gray hair, or at least in my case now, without any hair at all, right? And so I fell out of that, went into banking, and my brain was melting, and ultimately could not get a job outside of that. And so I went back to school for an entire year, got an accounting degree as quick as I could, and then went on from there to get my CPA and work in a variety of corporate accounting jobs over the last 20, 25 plus years. I don't know however long it's been at this point, but I've had a really good career in accounting and business and have done a lot of work in the energy industry. And, but all along, I had this other piece of me that wasn't fully being fulfilled.
Hmm.
I felt like my purpose was more
Right.
in creating, and so I could never get the bug was always there to write.
Right. Right.
I grew up reading a ton. My dad, got me into fantasy early on, and so I read a ton growing up, thousands of books, and always had, I felt like a natural affinity for writing, but it's weird because you just like with writing, it sounds like a pipe dream. Like a lot of
Hmm.
dreams sound like pipe dreams, right? Before you
Sure.
go after them.
Right.
And people tell you you can't really do it and you're not going to get anywhere doing that. And so I just started doing it. And like we talked about
Hmm.
earlier, didn't do it exactly the right way, but
Right.
over time, I've gotten, I've started to get a decent amount of traction and
Hmm.
I'm actually 6 novels deep at this point, but
That's
only
great.
4 of them are out on the market at right now. So,
That's great. Six done or sorry, four out and two on the way. Does that sound right?
well, one was the hot garbage novel I told you about.
Okay.
Another one is like not quite to genre because
Okay.
I started in horror, but I've moved to the thriller genre,
Okay.
and understanding genre is really important. So that'd be another way I could get your listeners to fall
Yeah.
asleep really quickly. Actually,
Ah,
get into all the details
don't
of
want to go
genre.
into
So
that.
I won't go into that.
I
But
love it.
the other one, which I really like, is sitting on. It's more of like almost like an urban fantasy book, and I may
Hmm.
release at some point, but right now is probably not the right time. So.
Okay, gotcha. Well, you mentioned genre, and to your point, we don't have to go too deep, but I am interested and intrigued as to um, kind of your fascination with thrillers. What drew you to that? What was that? Why was that somewhere that you landed and feel comfortable, and that's just been kind of your voice so far?
Yeah, actually, I'll start with the fact that I started in horror, and this will sound a
Okay.
little weird, but my wife and I, our first 7 dates, year after our anniversary, would go to the Saw movies, the Saw
Uh-uh.
sequels,
That's
and
awesome.
they just got
I
worse and
love you,
worse.
honey.
Yeah, it's like we both liked horror. It was like the only genre we could agree on.
That's so
Um,
funny. Okay.
I think we just both liked being scared. And horror actually, like real horror, is intelligent in that it's not really about the gore. It's not really about
Hmm.
like violence and monsters and
Right.
stuff like that. It's actually more about reflecting back
Mm.
inner fears, right? Like in
Right.
smart and intelligent ways. And horror is the only genre where it almost reflects real life in that you don't have a
Right.
standard ending. It can go anywhere. Um,
Sure.
and there's a lot of really smart horror out there. So people
Hmm.
kind of label it as one thing, but really good horror is something else. That said, to no surprise, it's hard to find a readership in horror unless you're Stephen King.
Yes, exactly.
There's just not many people who are picking up the horror books outside of Halloween. So
Hmm.
a very closely related genre is thrillers, and I've always loved
Sure.
thrillers. And my favorite author is a thriller author who's Gillian Flynn. She wrote Gone Girl.
Oh yeah.
And so I wrote a horror novel. It got picked up by a publisher in London. They marketed it as a psychological thriller.
Okay.
I noticed randomly that people were actually reading the book, unlike some of my prior stuff, which
Okay.
made a light bulb click on that said, oh,
Yeah.
people
Wait
actually
a
read
second.
thrillers.
Yeah.
I like thrillers. I can write thrillers, and people actually
Yeah.
read my work. So that's kind of how I wound up in it.
Right. Very good. So I'm not so much into that genre. However, well, better to say horror is not really my thing. Thrillers are good. I agree. Everybody kind of likes to be scared just a little bit, just to kind of keep them off base and this kind of stuff. So, one of the hallmarks of great thrillers is to your point, just deep questions, right? It's not about gore. It's about trust, human behavior, that kind of stuff. So,
Yes.
what are some of the big questions that you find yourself exploring through your work?
Um, I think that to really to write really good books, you sometimes have to push into what your fears are.
Okay.
Um, it's not always writing for the audience. It's more figuring
Mm,
out what frightens you and then exploring that. And a lot of times that work's gonna have meaning. So um, for me personally, since I'm a father, right, like one of
mm,
my biggest fears is losing my kids, as any parent
yes.
would have, but I can really
Right.
like connect with that. So I explore questions of like relationships and
Hmm.
what will you do to save the ones you love? How far will you go?
Okay.
What fears do parents have? It's losing their kids. It's them potentially growing up and turning out one way,
Mm,
not exactly as they planned to begin with. So,
right.
um,
Right.
that's what I would say. It's the funny thing. I had a fellow. I've never actually told anybody this, but I had a fellow author tell me that she thinks I write dad thrillers. So
Ah,
I kind of like that actually. So
hey, that's there's probably worse things to be called, right?
yeah, it's
A
like yeah, I
dad
don't think
thriller
anybody's
writer.
writing
Yeah,
dad thrillers. So
I love
yeah,
it.
the topic of parenthood is frequently in my books. So
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Well, I guess to that point, that was actually one of the next questions I wanted to broach with you. How do you balance writing with family life and obviously yet another career and this kind of stuff, home community? How does that all play out in the Stevens household?
a lot of the ways not very well in that I would say I have a little bit of an unhealthy balance. I probably don't take enough time. Like I'm kind of go go go, and I burn myself out too quickly.
Right,
So
right,
it was about all about the career and building interesting
right.
stuff about leadership, right? I built this life, and it's a really good life, and I love the life that we have, the lifestyle, right? But it's not the life I want to have anymore. Um,
Yeah, I got you.
if you're gonna write or you're gonna do like a side gig, you gotta fit it all into the margins of your life.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so for the last 15 years or however long I've been writing seriously, I'm up at 5 in the morning. I write before work. I
Wow.
write at lunch. I'll write on breaks. Just kind of like pulling together
Hmm.
the various open pieces with time.
Right,
Not a lot of, as you can imagine. See, so
right.
it's like this frustration that I can't ever write the best books I think I'm capable of because I can't give it my full
Hmm.
attention.
Sure.
Because, like as you said, you got to pay attention. You got to make sure the family's on track. You want to
Hmm.
be a good father. You want to be a good husband. You kind of got to be present, which I do struggle with at times.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but then you have the demands of the job. So over time, I've been working toward hopefully going full time with writing because I knew if I gave that up, I'd actually be unhappy too, right? And then you're not going to be a
Mm.
good member of the family either. So
Yeah, right.
luckily, my wife has been very supportive, and it's taken time to get to a point where I think this is potentially possible, but a lot of sacrifices in the past have led to a
Hmm.
point where I might be able to go full time actually in this
Right.
current year. So
Yeah, good for you. It feels like I've been following you on TikTok and the related things. And congrats. I know that your book hit number one in the thriller category. That's a big deal, man. Congrats for that.
yeah,
That's
thank you. Yeah,
really
it's
cool.
not something I ever actually was expecting, but it's
Sure.
still kind of hitting number ones right now. So
That's wonderful.
it's weird because you go for so long without any feedback and you get so
Mm,
much rejection. And with
yeah.
writing, truly, the rejection's like you almost have to be brain damaged to try this career.
Yep.
It's just like,
Just beware, right?
dude, the amount, like people will tell you the rejections are, but you literally don't understand how much
Yeah.
rejection you have to face down to start to.
Yeah.
So when you do start to actually get some traction, it's kind of like, wait,
Sure.
what is happening? So,
Yeah, right. What? Yeah, no, that's crazy. That's another question I wanted to kind of ask for you to you. Obviously, you mentioned rejection. There's a lot of hard parts about being a writer, like you'd mentioned before, fitting it in the margins. You have lots of other things that you are balancing at this point. So, outside of rejection, which I think that's kind of it doesn't go unsaid. I mean, I think that's very obvious, but like edits, acceptance, the sales, like that kind of stuff, just the perseverance. What would you say is just speak a little bit more on the realities of being a writer and kind of the struggles.
yeah, the biggest outside of rejection, the biggest struggle is self-doubt. You
Okay.
heard of imposter syndrome?
Oh yes, I live that every day.
Yeah, I think a lot of us do.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't matter how many successes you have, you still battle against that inner voice that says you're not good enough.
Right.
You're not going to be able to write a good book. This book's not going to be as good as the last.
Hmm.
So that is a true for me. That's always been. I'm getting better with it over time.
Hmm.
Because again, I think to write, you sort of have to have it in you, or any artistic endeavor, or whatever it is. Like
Sure.
what you're doing with your podcast, it's something you want to do,
Hmm.
right? You have a
Right.
passion for it, so you go after it. But the difficulties with writing is there's no stable income. You have to build an audience. You have to find
Mhm.
ways to reach people.
Right.
Um, when you reach people, you have to make sure that you're writing to market. You have to understand the genre. You have to do the research,
Hmm.
understand what you're actually writing. You have to be
Right.
well read in the genre.
Yeah. Right.
Um, and then you have to be able to deal with honestly like ratings. Like ratings is a really hard thing to over time get used to and comfortable with people critiquing your work because you'll go
Yes.
spend a year or two of your life creating this fake world where the characters
Mhm.
almost feel more real to you than the people in your real world.
Yeah.
Then,
Right.
when people start bashing on it almost cavalierly, it can be very difficult and it's just a growth. It's like developing the calluses to be able to realize
There you
that
go. Yeah.
it doesn't matter. That ratings are for readers. And so you just keep writing. And really that's the biggest thing is like you just keep going. I think that's the biggest thing with success in almost any area is you keep pushing. They say people are overnight successes, but they're an overnight success after, 10, 20 years of doing what they're doing.
Right.
So
Yeah. No, I think it's very, very true is that I don't know that's kind of the movie ending of like overtime overnight success and that kind of stuff. But the reality is I think it was it Malcolm Gladwell talked about that's where the 10,000 hours came in,
yes,
right?
yeah.
And they talk about like, we in America see the Beatles come here and they just blow up and they just go from, a success in England, but then just overnight to just this worldwide phenomenon. Little did everybody know that they were doing, you know, bar gigs in Germany for 10 years prior to that. So there's always work that leads up to the success that people see. But to your point, how often I think of that image of the guy digging in this tunnel, right? And he's about to turn around and you can just see on the other side of, like a foot more of digging.
Yeah.
There's all of this treasure and that kind of stuff. But you
Yes.
don't know. You don't know until you don't know, right? So it's a self-discipline thing. Yeah, it's a willingness to continue to go on. And I think that kind of speaks to your point of like, this has to be like deep down in your bones and in your gut. Like this has to be something that you love to do, because there's a lot of things that are going to knock you down along the route. So you have to really love it and feel it, to keep going, despite the critiques, despite the weight and that kind of stuff.
It'd be interesting to your point if people could actually map out their lives by decisions and
Mm,
see like kind of where a decision will take you if you stay after something, right? Like
yeah,
I think people's
right.
actions would be much different if they understood where they would go if they just pursued and continued to go
Right.
after something. It's like you never know how close you were to, like you said, to reaching
Mhm.
or achieving your goal, right? So
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I mentioned the number one bestseller, which again is incredible. You've also had some book awards, the Colorado Book Awards. I don't have all of them in front of me, but you've had quite a few recognitions along the lines. I'd love to hear kind of what does that mean, for someone that is just putting their heart and soul into this, knowing that it takes time and you've gone through the hot garbage phase and this kind of stuff. What does that recognition mean to you as a writer?
I think as a writer and probably anybody who pursues creative pursuits, you'll a lot of times get crumbs that you're on the right path,
There you go.
right? And you have to pay attention to those. And
Hmm.
so, and they're few and far between. So when I was starting to write short stories, I had a short story that was received an honorable mention in a national writing competition through Writers
Hmm.
Digest, which
Hmm.
is a well-known writing magazine. And when that happened, it was just like it kind of blew me away. I wasn't expecting it, but I was like, okay, maybe I'm on the right path. So I think there's some level of validation through awards that sort of reflect back to you that you're achieving the goals you set out to achieve.
Right.
Um, and here for me, it's different for everybody, but
Hmm.
think about like so, and it's motivation. But Tom Brady, right, sixth
Yep.
round draft pick, that constant chip on his shoulder for
Hmm.
years and years. I've had a chip on my shoulder with writing for a long time because I, I've been out there and I got a literary agent. I've tried the traditional publishing process and I've been
Hmm.
rejected by so many different publishers. And each time that happens, I'm like, I'm going to prove you wrong. It's like turning that rejection into just sort of almost like for me, not to oversell it, but a white hot rage that
Yeah. No,
you're
I
not going
get
to stand. You're not going
it.
to stand in my way. I'm
Yeah.
like there. So So again, when you start getting those rewards, you start getting that external feedback by
Hmm.
other authors or peers or whatever. It's kind of like an "I told you so." Um,
Hmm.
I haven't won the Colorado Book Awards yet, so
Okay.
that's my next goal. The next goal. I've received I've been a finalist a couple of years, but
Okay.
I'd like to at least get that. But they may not occur this year because they got
Hmm.
defunded by the Trump
Oh,
administration, the
oh,
Colorado
brother.
Humanities. So
Hmm.
we'll see if it stays around. But
Yeah, no, well, that's to your point. It is good to have the crumbs along the path and to get some recognition. That's fantastic. Yeah, that's really good. I love the chip on your shoulder, like, kind of screw you. I'm gonna show you that this is right. I actually wrote something on my Facebook the other day that I think that you'll probably resonate with is that and I lost my dad a few years ago. I'm sure you know that, but like um so I've had multiple people. I've had a great support system, even absent of my dad here. But obviously, that's a pretty big hole in your armor, right? From
yes,
what you grew up with and what you're just accustomed to. But what I wrote the other day, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is to never underestimate the importance and the impact, the value of someone believing in you. And that has happened. My mom is still here and she's, my number one cheerleader, my wife and my mom and that kind of stuff. So I still have those, but just I guess as a guy, there's something about a guy saying, you know what, hey, I see you, I'm proud of you, keep it up. Like I've had just little moments like that some people probably just think are just throwaway moments, but it's like, man, that really resonated. Thank you so much for that. Have you ever had anything like that?
yeah, well, first of all, your dad was a wonderful person. Like I
I
said,
appreciate
just
that.
really loved Paul, and so when I heard he'd passed, I was like, man, that definitely was a big loss. I know that was super hard.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it, in today's day and age, you got to have strong men, like growing
Hmm.
strong boys too, and that's
Right.
hard to. It doesn't always happen.
Right.
And so, like you're saying, with getting feedback from other dudes, I'm trying to think of a specific. Like I would say, what I've been lucky enough
Mm-hmm.
with, or very lucky, is I do have two good parents. And I was just sitting here as we're talking, after I wrote that failure of a novel, in my opinion,
Hmm.
I was sitting at a stop sign just thinking literally thinking I wasted the last 5 years of my life.
Wow.
I was real close to giving up just because I felt so defeated at that point.
Hmm. Right.
Because the thing is with writing again is you're pushing a huge boulder up the hill along with everything
Hmm.
else in your life.
Right.
It'd just
Yeah.
be so much easier to let go of that and then to
Hmm.
just live the life that everybody else lives, right?
Sure.
And you should be satisfied with.
Right.
Um, but we're not cookie cutter people. Nobody
No.
is.
No.
So, but my parents, I was talking with my parents, and they both said that they'd read my book on the way down to Grand Junction, and they talked about how impressed they were and how blown away they were.
Hmm.
And even though they're my parents, it was those words that
Right.
actually allowed me to continue on and have it like turned me around. And I
Yeah.
honestly don't. That was the one point in the writing career I don't know that I would have made
Mm.
it without receiving that feedback from both of them.
Yeah.
Really. So
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, again, never underestimate the value of a job well done or a word spoken to that point. And to those of us like yourself and I that have been abundantly blessed to have two incredible parents. We are so grateful and blessed to have that. I know that's not the reality for other people. So, I'm sure that,
Mhm.
you as a father and myself as a father, like as good as our dads were, we're trying to, be the next version, the next model, kind of improve upon that. But to continue paying that forward and even to the point of like, when it's possible and when it's applicable, applying that to those maybe that don't have that same blessing of having, a good model of what a dad looks like and what a strong, positive male role model looks like. So, anyways, yeah, not to
Yeah,
get
and
too
even
far
take
off, but
Oh, sure. I mean, honestly, even taking it a step further, you never know where like a kind word or a word of encouragement is going to go with someone either. So,
Mhm.
like, you might be the person who helps somebody else turn something around. So,
Right,
don't be afraid
right.
to do that, basically.
I love it. Appreciate that. That's good. I'm glad we went down that road for just a little bit. Let's jump back onto the some of the books here. One of your short stories, The Wallpaper Man, was adapted into a short film. So tell us about that experience. What was that like? What was it like seeing your words put onto the screen and all that kind of stuff? I'm very intrigued to hear about that.
That probably was the most surreal moment of the writing journey so far.
Right?
I had a director call me when one of my short stories is horror. Um, it was converted into a podcast, and a guy in LA heard it and he gave me a call and he said, "Hey, do you want to make this a movie?" And I, of course, said, "No, get away. I don't want anything to do with that." No, I mean,
Hmm.
of course, I was like, I was over the moon. I was thinking like it would get made into like, there's a lot of naivete when you start
Sure,
writing too,
sure.
thinking everything's going to go your way. And so
Hmm.
in my mind, I was thinking we'd have a movie and all this, but he owns his own media agency in LA, but he wants to become a director. And he's really talented, super talented guy.
Hmm.
Um, he- Falconer Film is his sort of his media agency, and over the years we spent time writing a full feature, and then ultimately he said, we need to turn this into a short film. It's really almost like a proof of concept these days.
Hmm.
And LA is the hardest, like screenplays and all that. What I've learned from doing it, because I wrote the full feature for this thing too with him, is that I don't know that I actually fully fit in that world because it's a hard one in that I almost prefer the rejection of the writing industry because with film, the days of, for instance, sliding a screenplay under somebody a stall right in LA and somebody grabbing it,
Right.
and it doesn't. You have to have like proof of concept
Okay.
to show that you're invested enough that hey, here's a little bit of what we think the full feature film would look like. And that's kind of what we did with this one. But in LA, at least from my experience, everybody's like, this is great. This is we definitely are interested in something like this. Da 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 da. But you actually never get the full rejection.
Oh,
So you
okay.
don't quite know if it's like gonna go somewhere,
Yeah,
but
like
it's
just shoot me
it's
straight.
always it's always going somewhere, right? There's
Yeah.
always going to be the movie right around the corner, and it just doesn't work that way. But with that
Hmm.
said, when this actually happened, it was an amazing experience because the director has connections with like folks from who are I think did film work on the Avengers and the Mandalorian, and so when I
Wow.
went out to LA and just saw the production itself and how everything was done and made, and
Hmm.
it was just incredible. I mean, it was like my dad went with me too, so he
Oh,
got to share that
cool. That's
experience.
awesome.
It was awesome. Yeah, again, just super surreal, super long day, but yeah, one of the highlights ever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool. That's awesome. Well, I'll continue hoping and wishing and praying for you that ends up being a case because I did watch the short film thing there. It's
Oh,
pretty
cool.
slick, man. Yeah. I had me on the edge of my seat, so
Yeah.
I'm sure it would be great. So that's awesome. Um, Shifting gears just a little bit into kind of more of the process and kind of the craft and this kind of stuff. What is one, I guess, creative rule that you always follow? What's a like a writing rule that you try to follow, and then maybe one that you purposefully try to break just to kind of mix things up?
The funny thing with writing is that, oh man, that's such a good question. Because if you could fully break it down into a template of like, this is exactly what you do every single time,
Right?
then it would be so much easier for people to actually do that. But even when I do that in my own writing, the
Uh-huh.
books are their own animal. Each one is
Mm-hmm.
different, each has its different life. It's difficult. Like over time, I thought I had a process, but I don't fully have a process.
Right.
I do have a bear. So the one rule that I follow nowadays is I at least try to see the entire story before I start the book.
Okay.
So am I doing a massive outline for stuff? Sort of, but really like it's like three bullet points. It's like here's act one, here's act two, here's act three.
Okay.
This is how
Gotcha.
the story starts. This is how the story, ends, and this is the path through. And if you can see that, then you're going to be a lot better off than if you
Mm.
just start. For me, but again, they actually call I don't know if you've heard this term. Have you heard of a pantser? This is a
Mm-mm.
writing
I don't know that
term.
one. Uh-uh.
So it means authors who write by the seat of their pants. So Stephen
Okay.
Stephen King is a famous one, but you just go
Really
into the story and you just say it's going to take me where it needs to go. Um,
interesting. Okay.
some people swear by that. Then there are outliners and plotters, which I'm probably somewhere in the middle of both those. So it's like I try if you fully plot out a book too, it can be difficult because it's like the story will want to go somewhere else than you you specifically want. A lot of times you need to let it go where it needs to go. So you have to be a little bit flexible too. But
Right. What was the third one? A pantser plotter. And what was the other one?
I was just saying I'd be somewhere in between the middle. So
Okay.
just you have to be flexible
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah. Okay.
in
Got it.
writing.
No, that's cool.
So
Appreciate that. That.
I will say one other rule is that you have to get the reader's attention. So you have to have the hook. Like
Mm-hmm.
you cannot just start. to put it in a more interesting context, if I didn't know you and I came up to you and I started telling you the story of my life, your eyes would glaze over because you don't know who I am, and you'd be like, "Who is this guy? Get out of here!" You wouldn't be
Right.
listening at all. But if you knew me and
Right.
we had a connection,
Sure.
you'd be far more interested. So
Right.
you got to make that connection first before you
Yeah.
start going into all the other stuff.
No, I completely agree. And for what it's worth, I'm still early on in this whole podcasting realm, but between seasons one and season two, I actually had like a company come in and audit and say, hey, what do you like? What could be improved and that kind of stuff. And that little beginning question was one of the main points, is to your exact point. Like, you've got to get readers' attention. You cannot start with like, hey, tell us about your background. Like, people don't care, right? I mean, your family, my family is going to listen to this because we know you, right? And that, hey, this is pretty cool. But like all of the people that we're trying to connect with that don't know us, that's good down the road, right? We can build into that, but let's start with something that brings value and grabs their attention from the very beginning. I don't know if I'm doing better at that, but it is something that I'm now learning the importance of.
You know what you're what you're doing too. I think the most important thing is you're consistent, and I see your
Mm,
podcast out there all the time.
mm,
And again, honored to be invited on it. So
absolutely.
you're continuing with it,
Right.
which
Yes.
that's when you can tell somebody's going to start to be successful with it too. But that you optimize and you improve as you go.
Right. Right. I appreciate that. Yeah, that is to our previous point, right? You gotta continue on. Maybe I'm just a couple episodes away from things blowing up. Who knows, right? But
Well, you also have a really cool format, even just with what you're doing here, right? With the writing, I love that with the almost the neon green markers and
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, it is. It was very thoughtful and purposeful, obviously, right? I mean, this was not by chance that I chose to do a video podcast. I don't even mess with the audio. It's like, hey, this is video or nothing, and it is different, right? So that's what we're going for, and it's kind of a fun thing. So there is the kind of the attraction aspect, but just full disclosure, like I process that way. It's like I'm listening, but I'm trying to like, okay, I'm hearing what you're saying. How do I encapsulate that into one bullet point? Feel like I'm pretty decent at that, and that's kind of a fun way because then you can kind of look back, in through our conversation of like, oh, this is kind of where it started and different things like that. So
interesting.
yeah,
Yes.
anyways, it's fun.
Yeah,
It's if nothing else, it grabs people's attention, and if anything beyond that, it's kind of a fun way to capture moments. So,
absolutely.
well, very cool. Well, Caleb, this has been super fun. I really appreciate it. I'd love to get your take on our three key questions that we ask all of our guests. So, number one, who is a leader that you most admire and try to emulate?
I mean, I'm sorry. Clear
You're good.
the throat there. Um, I just have to come back to both my parents, honestly.
Hmm.
It's They taught me to be who I am. They gave me the courage to chase my dreams. They've always been supportive.
Hmm.
And just the way I've watched them navigate problems and obstacles in their lives has informed me on a path through with mine, right? So both my mom and my dad have just been, I would definitely say they've been the leaders who I've tried to emulate. And they've given me a good, just like we were just talking about, right?
Right.
Parents, there's just nobody more important than parents
Yep.
in
Yep.
someone's life. So.
I agree. Neil and Becky, thank you very much. You guys rock. All right. Oh, gotta grab that one. Oh, okay. Question number two. What learning has most impacted you in the last year? I feel like this is kind of an interesting question for writers because, everybody's on their own learning path and this kind of stuff, but it feels like you mentioned just a while ago that every novel, every story is going to present its own challenges and this kind of stuff. And you're further down the path and you're in these writing groups and you're connected with these people. So, I can imagine that every month there's, a lot of brand new learning, but we're at the beginning of 2026, looking back in 2025, what was the one that impacted you the most, you say?
I mean, I think the thing people need to realize just outside of writing or creativity in general is that sometimes you're your own best bet. So
Okay. I like it.
very easy to get have the company take care of you or somebody else take care of you
Hmm.
or, go after security. But sometimes in life you gotta go after what you want. So
Hmm.
I for a long time was really trying to get the traditional published deal, meaning like the publisher out there would take the book and they would put it out everywhere and it'd be in the bookstores and they'd get the book out there and they'd get it into
Right.
airports, etc. And
Sure.
I met a group of people, fellow authors who were doing very well by themselves and just through their help, I've learned, especially this year, that this is totally feasible to do on my own. And
Mm.
it's almost like you go out there and you become successful enough that you have those companies knocking on your door anyway. That's how you get
There
their
you go.
name.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah.
so
That's great. Good for you. I'm glad. I did notice that like on your TikToks, you know, proudly and accurately state that you are an indie author, and that is its own journey and its own challenges and that kind of stuff. But you know, thinking of in all mediums, right? Music, writing, and this kind of stuff. That owning your own material is kind of the you can't that can't be understated how important that is and how
it's
much
the
that
truth.
leverage that gives you, right?
100% makes a
Yeah.
huge difference. Yep.
Right. Right. Awesome. All right. Last question for you, sir. How would you This has not been the focus of our conversation here, but I would love to hear how you would empower learning for future generations, whether that's in your writing path or just lessons learned, just in your own life. How would you respond to that one?
I want to see like kids go after what they want. I want to see them.
Hmm.
When I say empower learning, I want them to be
Right.
empowered themselves, right?
There you go.
And I think that can be difficult, especially in today's like
Hmm.
attention deficit society, where
Yeah.
our attention stays on something for like 2 seconds before, I sort of feel like we're losing. Um, man, I don't want to say like intelligence, but in a way, it's like we're almost like losing
Yeah.
intelligence. Like the smarter the AI, all that stuff is actually like
Sure.
making us
Sure.
less intelligent and less willing to go
Right.
after what we want. So I'd love to see, kids or people learning on their own and actually doing the work and striving and struggling to get to where they
There you
want to go.
go.
So, like, how do you actually achieve that?
Right.
I think that's difficult, but there's like with AI, right? Like you can go learn about anything you want at this point in time for the most part. You can really learn how to start a business. You can learn how to, if you want to be a social media influencer. I mean, social media influencers like book talk influencers, book influencers. Those are people who love to read, who go out there and they actually support authors and they read a lot of books and they talk about those books. And so they actually and I think they should get some income from that, but they're also lifting
Hmm.
up other people. And so when you think about social media influencers, people are quick to write that off. But those are
Hmm.
people who are really ambitious and have gone after what they want and they've turned
Right.
what they want into, an income stream and a path forward for them. So it's
Hmm.
just self-reliance. I don't think we have as much self-reliance as we should.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I love it. Awesome. Well, Caleb, thank you so much for spending some time with me. It's been fun to reconnect, man. And
Yeah, absolutely.
honestly, one of the things that I've enjoyed the most is just kind of hear, you know, we were on uh, paths kind of close to each other really, but our paths really didn't cross all that much in high school. But to kind of hear, you know, my perspective of your dad, mine, yours of mine, and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and the impact that each of them made, it warmed my heart, and I'm so glad to hear that they're doing well, that your family's doing well. I'm happy for you, proud of all of that you've accomplished, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for you because you never know, right? You might be right next to that huge win. So keep it up, man.
Well, thank you. And likewise to you. It's been fun watching your podcast and fun to be on. And it's great when I see people from Cortez. Again, a small town actually like
Right.
doing things, going after things. So
Yeah.
very cool. Thanks again.
Cool. Thanks again, man. Best of luck. Take care. See ya.
Bye.
If today's conversation with Caleb encouraged you, challenged you, or reminded you to keep going, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs that reminder. Creative growth isn't about perfection, it's about persistence. And as Caleb showed us, when you stay committed long enough, the skills compound and the breakthrough comes. Thanks for listening to the Empowered Learning Podcast. I'll see you on the next episode.